Good day, good night, and welcome to World Cup Today, Day 1. It has officially begun. Russia 5, Saudi Arabia 0. Hello, Duane.
Hello. Day 1, we're slackers. We started 5 rings Olympic daily on day -2. Are we slacking?
To be fair, we started World Cup Today 2 weeks ago. So maybe we were slacking during Pyeongchang. Who knows? But welcome to World Cup Today. If you are a brand new listener, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. The World Cup has begun. 1 game behind us, 63 in front. Full day of game tomorrow. But there was some opening ceremony as well. So let's start there. Robbie Williams? Really? Robbie Williams in 2018? That's the best you could do, Russia?
Okay. I'm not a Robbie Williams fan, but I'm old enough to remember when Robbie Williams was the king of the pop world. And as I was saying to you while you were saying this, if you think about the average age of the person in that stadium, Robbie Williams makes a lot of sense. He is, for those that don't know, a little bit of musical history. If you don't know your, Brit pop 1990s history here, Robbie Williams is the #1 selling English language singer, like selling record, has sold more records than any English speaker in all of Europe in history. And additionally, he's the #1 selling English speaking artist in Latin America in history. So I kind of get it. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. I was kind of hoping for like something a little more Russian, like something hilariously Russian, like a bear juggling or something. That would have amused me greatly.
Why? I was expecting the bear to deliver the game ball, like it happened in the Russian Second League division game a few weeks ago. But no, maybe not. But opening ceremonies in FIFA, it's not a thing. It's been a thing, recently, just because. But this show was okay. It was a beginning, but I was shocked that Robbie Williams had a 3-song set, literally his greatest hits across the world. Millennium, of course. That's back when music videos were relevant. I remember the videos of him getting undressed, and that's not enough, and he literally gets his muscles out and finishes as a skeleton, which was a weird video. Wonder what the director was smoking before doing that video. But yeah, it was I don't know, a missed opportunity. If it's me, I'm organizing the opening ceremony of the World Cup. I'm like, we've been having a lot of criticism on Russia lately because of human rights and inclusivity and all those things that we're not doing. So how about we open up to the world by bringing the world's artists, a few artists from the world, and showing inclusivity? Or Robbie Williams available, so we can have him pretty cheap. What should we do?
I doubt he was pretty cheap, but he still does move a lot of tickets at any rate. Look, I didn't actually mind it. Maybe that's because I'm a little bit older. I don't know. It was fine.
Yeah, I'm criticizing him.
I liked it when they brought the OG Ronaldo out. That was my favorite part, to kick a ball and smile. That made my day. Anything else was gravy.
You say OG, I say Fat Ronaldo, but it's the same. And no one is happier in life than Fat Ronaldo, right? Have you looked at him? He's happy. He's out there smiling, happy. I'm like, yay. Wow, wish I could enjoy life like he is. And kids out there that are listening, you always can come back from a mistake. Remember that god-awful haircut in 2002? Looks good now. You can always move on from a mistake.
The thing I'm going to say about real quickly, Fat Ronaldo, I didn't have a podcast back then, quite obviously. If you're new to this sport and you're looking at him as some kind of cartoon character, do some YouTubing. Ronaldo, when he was playing, he was a big man. He was always a big man. And when he retired, he got bigger, like many people do. But he was a phenomenal striker, an amazing player, his generational player at that time. And I don't think he quite gets the respect he deserves. A lot of people look back at the '98 final when he mysteriously had that fit or whatever, and then was off the lineup and then on the lineup and didn't do anything in the World Cup. They
guy
kind
had
of judged him on that
seizures.
and forgot when 4 years later he won the World Cup and was the Golden Boot. So yeah.
If you don't know, in 1998, the guy had seizures like 2 days before the final of the World Cup or something.
It was the morning of the final. So yeah, it's an interest. There's actually we came to win. Pardon me. That I talked about them earlier. They're doing a bunch of documentaries in the lead up to the World Cup. So assumably they're done now. They hopefully do a few more because they're really well done. It's a podcast. They did one on the 1998 World Cup final, which of course had a lot of things going on there. You know, in France, Dan, you've got the Ronaldo situation. It's a really interesting podcast if you're interested in learning about that. But yeah, OG Ronaldo, fat Ronaldo, they're one and the same. I'd be fat too if I was him.
Yeah, it happens one of two ways, right? When players retire, you either continue to be fit for the rest of your life and appear in a Legends game and do great and continue to play in Masters League or pickup leagues or just Senior League for the rest of your life, and you continue to be really fit and really in shape, or you eat a lot and enjoy life and you get a bit round.
Yeah, I've been to Europe a few times in the summer, and I flip on their soccer channels, and they'll have those Masters, like 8-and-8 tournaments. They're quite popular as sort of a diversion. You know, the dad takes the son out to watch, you know, his favorite players when he was a kid, and the son goes, "Who the hell are these guys?" But no, they're fun games. With the players you see out there are not the Ronaldos. They're the backup left backs of their day. So yeah,
backup left back. That seems like a backhanded compliment, but yeah.
Well, sure. I wish I could. I dream of being a backup left back for a professional soccer team. I think the dream might be dead, but yeah.
You know what my dream is? My dream is I wish I could be a 15-year-old Canadian soccer player right now. That's my dream right now, so I can maybe try to make the squad for the World Cup. Man, you should have seen me. I know I'm bantering here on United 2026 and yesterday and how important it is. I'm still on cloud 9. Come on, the World Cup's coming to my city. World Cup's coming to Duane City. World Cup's coming to our country. Players that we know, players that I've been interviewing for years, players that I've seen grow in front of my eyes are going to represent my country in a game in front of me for the World Cup. Come on, like I look like a Montreal Impact were playing last night. We'll talk about this later on, and I had the pleasure to talk to 3 of Canadia's national team's players. Raheem Edwards, I barely talked to Raheem Edwards, but he was there. I talked to Samuel Piet and to Anthony Jackson Amel, and I looked like an 8-year-old boy looking at Superman or something, because I was like, man, you guys are gonna represent Canada in 2026 and hopefully 2022. Oh man, this is so awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jonathan Rosario we're at the very end of this podcast, we're probably briefly going to touch on the MLS games for last time. But Rosario scored again and is having a good season. I was thinking, oh, it's sad that he's going to be too late for the World Cup. Then I do the math. He might be very right on the tail end. But the generation that grew up with MLS are, at the beginning will be the veterans, and the generation that are coming through now will be in the prime, and some kids that we haven't heard of will be the young guns at that point. It's only 8 years away. That's not that long. Hell, TFC's older than 8 years. MLS has been in Canada longer than 8 years, and I can remember those days like they were yesterday. So it'll go by in a flash of an eye. You'll notice, Kevin, that what we're doing here right now is that we're doing everything but talking about the game that we just watched.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, what about Cheryshev? Let's talk about Cheryshev and his brace. Let's talk about Russia 5. Yeah, a handful. And Saudi Arabia 0.
Yeah.
My hot take of the day, Canada would beat Saudi Arabia. But it's not about Canada. It's about the World Cup. It's about Russia. Great day for Russia. If I was the sheik, if I was the king of Saudi Arabia, who was in the box with Vladimir Putin, with Gianni Infantino between each other, yeah, that got awkward. I have nothing like, okay, you guys can stop it now. We get it. We're not good, but you can stop it. It's over.
Well, what I'm thinking of as I'm watching this thing is 48 teams? Really? You think 48?
This is going to be a mid-table game in 2026.
Like, my God. Look, I did some math. That was the 13th straight game without a win that Asia has played in the World Cup. That they did not win a single game as a confederation in 2014. They won, I believe, 2 in 2010. Their entire record, I did the math again, they have 0.70 points per game as a confederation in the 32 team World Cup. That includes 2002 when both Japan and Korea. This is in the group stage only. I'm excluding knockout round games, although they haven't played a lot of those. But I just in the group stage. Excluding 2002, they're down to 0.56 points per game. And if you take Japan and Korea out of the mix altogether and just look at sort of the bottom half, including Australia, the people that are considered the lesser lights, because Japan and South Korea are the dominant teams in that confederation, 0.40 points per game in World Cup history since they expanded to 32 teams. Yet they have one more spot than CONCACAF. Figure that one out. Other than population, there is no argument.
And Duane, I don't know if you have done, probably not, and I'm not going to throw you under the bus here, but if you can do the math, the exact opposite of math for CONCACAF and what CONCACAF's results have been over the years, CONCACAF has done well compared to Asia at the World Cup level. There's usually a surprise team from CONCACAF that goes far to the quarters, usually either Costa Rica, Mexico. We've seen this happen a few times over the years.
Yeah, well, I have actually done that, not for this World Cup yet, so I have not included the 2014 stats, but I did it in the lead up to 2014, and off the top, I don't have the numbers in front of me, obviously, but off the top of my head, I do remember that CONCACAF did top the you exclude South America and Europe, the traditional powers, so CONCACAF was actually the next best, ahead of Africa even, yet they still get considered to be the weakest confederation, and the stats just don't bear it out. Now, what Asia and CONCACAF have in common, excluding this World Cup, obviously with the United States out, is that they both have top two teams that tend to do a little bit better than the others. And in CONCACAF's case, they do have Mexico. So you have to sort of look at them without Mexico in there. In the days ahead, I'll probably do that too, because we're going to have lots of different ways to analyze this thing. But Asia is just struggling right now. It is a very weak cycle in terms of how they're doing, in terms of the teams that are in this final cycle. I mean, Saudi Arabia in Asian qualifying, to give you a bit of an idea, you just saw a team that to lose 5-0 to what was considered to be the weakest, host country in ages, and it's almost sad for obviously ages. It's not sad for Russia. They did what they needed to do. Jump in, Kevin.
In ages, like South Africa was not that great, so let's in ages.
Yeah,
Brazil exactly. Was good. Brazil was a good host, and Germany was a good host. South Africa was not. So Russia is at least equal for South Africa, maybe even better. I don't know. 5-0. Wow. Can we take anything out of this game? Like, does it mean anything? Can Russia take this result and the confidence of this result and turn around and go against an Egypt and be like, yeah, we can beat you guys? I think Egypt will be more of a test for Russia. And then, of course, Uruguay will be really the test, which technically is a class of this group. But can we take anything out of this 5-0 win?
No. Other than Russia, because they scored so quickly, did not get barreled down on any confidence. Didn't lose their confidence at any point.
They weren't tested at all.
Saudi Arabia managed to hold off for a while. Maybe Russia starts to panic a little bit, and that might affect their confidence moving forward. But other than that,
Saudi Arabia had no shots on net up until the 70th minute. So,
all right. If to keep on the host thing, just to terrify you a little bit more, and to terrify you about Asia's possibilities in this World Cup, Saudi Arabia finished 1 point back of Japan in Asian qualifying. So Japan, considered the class of the region, was only a point ahead of them, right? so they're right there. Australia finished tied with them in points, and if you wanted, and South Korea, they were in the other group, so we can't really compare apples to apples here, but they did actually have less points than Saudi Arabia's 19 in Asian qualifying. To really terrify you for 4 years' time, though, and to maybe make Russia seem okay, and maybe even South Africa perk up a little bit, Qatar last. Yeah. Asian they made it to the final round, so not at last, but they were last in the final round with 7 points. So
we joke often that the countries that host are hosting because they want to get a spot in the World Cup. It's truly the case for Qatar. Like, they wanted to get in, and there was only one way. Let's buy the World Cup. Literally.
They're essentially buying players too. I mean,
yeah.
I don't actually. There will be let's kid her. There will be a lot of Qatarians that look a little Brazilian.
I was going to say, there was going to be a lot of Brazilian-born Qatarian in 4 years, and Portuguese. And by the way, that's an interesting fact. There was a graphic yesterday or the day before on social media with all the players that were born in a different country representing another one. And France has about 2 full teams of players born for France or having the possibility of playing under a French passport, playing for other teams. So France, as good as they are, they could even be better.
Well, yeah. I mean, France does. France also does take advantage of its colonial past too. I mean, their greatest player. He's really
Algerian-born
that, so.
Zidane could have been Algeria's best player ever, but no. But that was still a good decision. It was a good decision. But let's go back on this game. 5-0 Russia, Saudi Arabia. I don't think we can take anything away from this game like you. But now it's tomorrow, Egypt, Uruguay. Does the winner of this second game in Group A win the group?
I don't know. I mean, Uruguay's the class of the group. Uruguay's played very well in the last year. I think their ranking is deflated because of their struggles prior to that. But once they started to inject that team with some youth, it's a pretty old team at the top end. I mean, their 2 top stars are in their 30s. You start to see the results turn around. So I think Uruguay is really happy about this group right now. I did pick Russia, as you know, to get out of this group because I did think that, the draw was very kind to them. I wonder what Morocco's morale is going to be, considering, that I don't know how much the players care about stuff like this, but they may have been hurt a little bit by the fact that they didn't get the World Cup. I could even see Morocco, because this is the 5th time that they lost, sort of like mailing this in a little bit. So I'm very curious to watch this game tomorrow. And also you look at that's Morocco. I'm talking about the second game of the day. I'm mixing my teams up here. Egypt is obviously the team in this group, and the injury concerns are what we're worried about there. Are they the favorite? No, because again, I don't believe, Captain Mo there is ready to go. I just don't. And without him, I don't trust Egypt at all. And I'm not really looking forward to watching Egypt and Saudi Arabia sputter their way to a 0-0 or a 1-0 for Egypt in a few days' time.
We'll have more time tomorrow to preview Portugal and Spain. We're going live at 10 a.m. during regular group stage game of the World Cup. 10 a.m. live at youtube.com/sports podcast network. So we'll have plenty of time to preview more in-depth Portugal and Spain. But Duane, Spain fired Lopetegui 2 days before a game. This is insane.
Well, yeah, there is some precedent out there in terms of not just in soccer, but if you look across the board in other sports of high-profile firings and just in the leading into the most important aspect of their season. There's a great article in, I believe, the Times, one of the British papers. I did actually retweet it earlier today. It's the only tweet of that subject that I put out there. So if you want to go back through my feed, 24th minute, you can find it. That defends the firing, says it was the right thing to do. You've got to show that you have some pride, because his decisions, his actions indicated that he felt that Spain was second rate to Real Madrid. And as I said very briefly in our show yesterday, because I was saying it as Canada was winning the World Cup, or winning the right to host 10 games in the World Cup is what I mean, that the root of everything to do with Spain has to do with that rivalry. And if you have a guy walking away from the Spanish national team to go to Real Madrid, the Barcelona people on that side of the divide are going to look at it and shake their head. Maybe he's able to keep the players in line, because the players are professionals and the players are able to maintain friendships and sort of, they're behind the line, so they don't quite have the same passion. But it's going to create so many distractions. There was a great point in the article I spoke of where they talked about how the entire Spanish media would have exploded and every decision would have been viewed and written about in that vein. Every question would have been to do with that, and it just would have been a distraction. And we kind of can scoff at that, but maybe you in Montreal might have some kind of idea of what that kind of singular obsession sports media looks like with the Montreal Canadiens, but I don't even think so. I think it's like 10 times worse than even that when you're talking about these clubs. It's and I've been over there. I've been to both Madrid and Barcelona, and I've seen these papers. It's all you see everywhere in the city. It engulfs those cities like nothing I've seen any other sporting team do anywhere in the world. So I can see all that sort of stuff. And will it help them? I don't know if it's going to help them, although the guy that they brought in is a stabilizing force. He's been around the program for a long time. Will it hurt them? That's the question. And we're going to find out pretty quick, because this is obviously their toughest test of the group stage right off the bat.
Yeah, they're playing they're playing their biggest test of the group stage to begin with 2 days after it. So we'll see right there and then and there. There's a repercussion to the decision of the Spain Football Federation to fire Lopetegui and replace him just hours before their first kick of the ball in the Russia 2018 World Cup. But you mentioned something interesting, and I kind of agree. When you have big, in my experience especially, big players that were in big clubs in Europe and have dealt with European media come over here, they have a fourth wall that they always give you the same type of answers, because they're protecting themselves. They're defensive because they're used to having not necessarily a journalistic etiquette to the people who cover the team, and every single detail of a quote can be taken about 10, 15 different ways and really made something out of nothing. When a player comes over here in North America, there's a bit more of an ethics to journalism, so you kind of have a defensive mentality from the players, and it takes them a while to open up. So now I can understand that pressure that those players are put under from the media. It must be insane.
Well, yeah, no. In Montreal and Toronto too, when you're talking to the Leafs and the Habs, you'll have a lot of attention, and they'll have a lot of demands on their time, and that's where the media pressure comes in. But what they don't really face over here is like a legitimate attempt to like take them down. And that exists over there. There are people that are, almost like double agents for the other side. You know what I mean? Like it's not like
Marca in Spain, the big newspaper that is literally fired coach before. Like this newspaper fired coaches before. We're able to manipulate the perception of stories to their viewers, their listeners, and their audience, and their audience is big, so in a way they manipulate the fans' perceptions.
Yeah, well, exactly. And as I say, and you look, then you get the tabloid side of things, where they'll be trying to dig up any dirt they can, because there are pressures at the tabloid level. Isn't really about wins and losses. It's about selling papers on their end, and they know that sex sells and violence sells and sort of scandal sells, right? So they look to find those sort of stuff. They look to find the angles even when none exist. Prime example of that would be, and we joked about this in the preview, would be how Raheem Sterling is handled in the British tabloid media. So it's a different animal, and that's again, to get back to our point in hand, you've got to look at the Spain firing through that lens. That part of this is about trying to protect the unity of this and the keep them in that bubble, keep them away from this controversy over the years. It's just easier to cut off the head of the snake in this particular case, because the snake's pretty strong and the snake can kind of figure itself out, because this is Spain. This isn't a team that's a product of its manager and has been playing and running through walls, and suddenly they're losing their their leader in the last second. This is just a guy that's, well, I said the head of the snake. That's probably the wrong way. We're cutting the tail of the snake off, because really the snake is he's riding the snake, right?
We're cutting the guy that puts the name on paper at the end of the day, but that technically doesn't decide anything. He does chooses the players, but the players basically chose themselves because they played well in a way. And that's what the Spain national team is. It's basically two teams making up the 90% of the composition of this team, and 10% of players playing elsewhere in La Liga. So that's what it is. And don't think there's no political aspect to this move as well, when Real Madrid, the team of Spain, the team of the king of Spain, the team, it's Real, it's of course the federal aspect of Spain, and you have Barcelona, Catalan, which represents the Catalan nation that tried to have a referendum last year. So all those things mixed together, you understand why the Spanish Football Federation had no choice, in their views, to make a pledge for unity of the entire country, aka its entire player pool, to make sure that they carry Spain out of the knockout stage this time around.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind they failed at the group stage last time. Had a massively terrible tournament. That loss to Holland, who turned out to be a very weak Holland team too. It's still shocking. I remember watching that at Scallywags, the infamous Scallywags here in Toronto, and just everyone was just like mouth is wide open because they were used to Spain just winning everything, and at that point, that's when the bubble went boom. It's kind of interesting. You don't usually see. You always get. It's funny how World Cup will start to evolve, and there's always some massive camp story that breaks near the start. Like that. This is universal. And no one knows where it's coming from. This year it came from Spain. So
hey, it's the France 2010,
which is good.
It's the France 2010 of 2018. Spain is France, but just 8 years removed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's good because, look, today was, I remember, Kevin, when I was in high school, I had a good friend. She was involved in Mothers Against Drunk Driving, for whatever. This is going to have a point. Bear with me. And she was planning this dance, and it was like 4 months in advance, and it became like singularly obsessive to her. Every detail, it was like something that she did constantly, and she really put a lot of effort into this, a lot of focus in this, and counted the days down until it happened. And then the day showed up to the dance happened, and she got there early and was very excited and giddy and fixed everything up, made everything perfect, and then waited and waited and waited, and nothing happened. No one came that night. Very sad for her. And if you're listening, sorry about that, but at any rate, that was many years ago now. But the point I'm making is that today felt a little bit like that. It was like we waited and we were excited and we were getting the finishing touches on it and we're ready to go, and then we got there, and
then tomorrow we get the games.
Yeah.
And we got a good one though. We'll talk about this obviously in our preview tomorrow, 10 a.m. When I say tomorrow, I mean Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Anywhere in the world, just after the first game, you can listen to us World Cup Today live on YouTube, youtube.com/sportspodcasting network. And you can find the podcast versions of all the shows we do anywhere you get your podcasts, which that is iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player. Anywhere you do get your podcasts, you can find World Cup Today. Make sure you do subscribe and download podcasts. Even if you listen to us live, download a podcast or two and listen to the show for a second or third time, and say hello to our advertisers. This really helps us out down the road, so we thank you. We'll take a very short break. When we come back, we'll just discuss a bit again Canada 2026 when it comes to club side, and we'll give a little taste of what soccer today is with the last Canadian review for the next 3 weeks. World Cup Today live daily during the 2018 FIFA World Cup. YouTube.com/sportspodcasting network and sportspodcastingnetwork.com. Ad-free version of our show available at patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. We do thank you very much for your support. $2 a month, $5 a month. Heck, you can give as much as you like, and it helps us better the production value, better the opportunities of advertisement, better the opportunities of distributing the show anywhere we can. With your help, we will go far, maybe as far as 2022 Qatar. Who knows where the listener can take us. Qatar's far though. At least 2026 is a bit closer. But speaking of 2026, Canada, how you feeling today?
Still a little surreal, I think. Inevitably yesterday there were a couple wet blankets out there that they were trying to put a wet blanket over this, telling us that, including our friend Ben Massey, we love you, Lord Bob, but maybe you need to smile sometimes. You don't have to find the negative in everything. There was a columnist here in Toronto, Cathal Kelly, who's, like, I joked last night to people who were pointing this article out to me that Cathal would write about the Leafs power play struggles the day of the Stanley Cup parade down Yonge. So you got to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. There is an aspect, instinct to find negativity and stuff. There is no negative to hosting 10 games in the World Cup. In fact, the argument, I guess, in Ben's piece was that we should have gone for it all. And I agree with that. I think we could have hosted it. I think that would have been a brilliant thing. But hosting it all also takes out all the risk of it all, right? And if you're worried about the financials, you're worried about the costing of it, and a lot of people are, a lot of people that aren't in our bubble are for sure, then doing this 10 thing, we're getting all the benefits of having the excitement around it, the buildup of it, which is really where the benefits come from. It comes from the corporate sponsorships that come on board. It comes from the inspiration. It comes from the programs that are created to better identify players, the programs that are created to better improve our coaching across the board. All this stuff is going to happen because of seed money, because of money that comes in, because of this group. And we're doing this without taking all of the risk on. So why would anyone complain about this other than you don't get as good a party in 8 years? And that's sad. Yeah, I wish I could have that full party. I wish we could be having a debate right now which city is going to get the World Cup final, and I can't even imagine. Canadians are very, we're not very regional at all, so that would be a fun debate to have. But and it would be here, by the way, 100%.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
you'll have the opening day game will be in Toronto. You'll have a Canada game for sure in Montreal, and probably a Canada game in Edmonton. That's the question. Is because it's the opening day game, that might mean that Canada doesn't play in Toronto. But we'll see. And that's a lot of debate, a lot of topics, a lot of things to go through in 8 years' time. And we'll start to even just talk about which actual city. Yes, Montreal, Toronto, and Edmonton are part of this, but it doesn't mean that Montreal will be there for sure yet. Still, the decision need to be taken, and here's the information that I got yesterday from different sources, and it comes from Michel Labrec, director of the IRIO, which is the Olympic Installation Office that takes care of the Stade Olympique and everything that surrounds the Big O. The mandate is not just to fix the roof for the World Cup. It has nothing to do with the World Cup to begin with. His timetable is 50 years. He needs to find a solution for the roof that is either removable or that is sustainable and that is going to be solid for 50 years. And the budget needs to be between 200 and 300 million. And if in that budget, if that design, it's possible to have a way to remove the stadium either fully or to open up the stadium as a retractable roof for a World Cup game, then all good for it. But that is not the goal of this. The goal of this for Montreal, not even the World Cup, I mean fixing the Big O roof, is to have a solution that is good enough for 50 years. So if that includes taking away the roof for the timetable of the World Cup and then finding a way to put it back on that is feasible and not damageable to the structure or too cost effective, then great. If not, it might only be Edmonton and Toronto. We'll know the solution in 2019 for the Big O's roof, and we'll have the final decision for the cities in 2021 for the World Cup 2026. So Montreal right now is in this, and technically, like in the words of many people involved, and Richard Legendre, vice president of Montreal Impact, a World Cup in Canada cannot happen without Montreal in it. So they'll try to find a solution, and the Montreal Impact and the Canadian Soccer Association are putting a lot of lobby pressure on the IRIO to find that solution. But it's still all with this solution in mind. If it works, perfect. If not, it might only be Edmonton and Toronto. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I just want to be honest and open about the Olympic Stadium roof situation.
Yeah, well, with all due respect, the Women's World Cup happened in Canada without Toronto involved, so a World Cup could happen in Canada without Montreal involved,
yes,
but it wouldn't be ideal.
Exactly. And this was just to illustrate their willingness to fight for this. More than just a utopian idea, oh, it cannot happen without us. More like, we won't let it happen without us.
Prediction, and I think I think this is the best solution for Montreal. I think this is the best chance. If you love the Big O, if you truly love the old girl, and a lot of people do, including myself, this is that miracle drug that might be able to save her and give her another life, because she's not long for this world otherwise. It is not a building that has a lot of it's kind of run down. Well, it's not very modern.
To be fair, it was just injected with 150. The Big O changed a lot in the last 18 months. The tower itself, you just go to my Twitter feed. There's fresh pictures from yesterday. It all changed. It's now modern. There's Wi-Fi, fiber optics running everywhere in that tower. There's offices being built for big insurance companies in Canada and in North America, big offices that are like 1,500 workers are going to work there on a daily basis in that tower. Infrastructures, elevators, restaurants, a lot of things are happening in that tower. So the tower has been taken care of. It has been solidified. It had the biggest crane in North America for about 2 years coming out of the actual Big O. That was impressive. So the tower itself has been fixed. Now it's the rest. And, well, if the solution is found and if it's feasible to just, I'm just explaining here, to put everything on hinges and you take the hinges out, you take the roof out just for 2 weeks and you put it back on and it's all dandy, then great. I feel that's what's going to happen anyways, and that might be the solution. Or maybe technology has evolved to a point where we can actually pull off a retractable roof in a nice fashion in those structures and that it's not too heavy, because the tower itself has a weight limit that you can put on it. So there's a lot of things you need to do, but hopefully a solution will be found. A solution will be found, and the Montreal bid part will actually take place.
Well, I hope so as well. My prediction is that what's going to happen is that when all is said and done in 2026, there will be games in Montreal at Olympic Stadium, but it will be Olympic Stadium 2. And the only remaining piece of that building that will be there will be that tower, because that tower will maintain the visual look of the stadium so that it will still look like the Olympic Stadium. It will still have a bit of 1976 there, but I think it'll be an almost entirely different stadium, and that will allow Montreal the opportunity to have a world-class stadium as they deserve again.
Yeah, you do need a world-class stadium if you want to have whatever.
Well, and Montreal's a city that would probably want to host a World Athletics Championship or something like that. Or maybe you do configure it so you could put another sports team in there. You know which one I'd like to see back, but whatever other team you want.
Hey, if soccer, it'll be past 2022 then, so MLS is supposed to be top 4, top 5 leagues in the world, so the Impact will need a top 4, top 5 league in the world stadium, and that could be that. Yeah, it could be that.
Precisely. Yeah, like I say, like in Montreal's a city that's hosted the Olympics. They're a city that embraces F1. They're a city that likes to look worldly. So a world championship of track and field would be wonderful in that city. And if you built that stadium with that in mind too, then great. I think that there's lots of opportunity there. You do need to twig the actual stadium itself a little bit. As much as, I adore the place still. It has a lot of charm, but you go up to that top level, and I swear to God, there are still beer caps from 1976 up there.
Okay, yeah. It was, you could smoke inside the Big O up until like 2014. So that tells you all you need to know. And so no, of course. And when I was speaking about the renovations, it's nothing to do with the concourse or the playing field or the seating or the actual stadium. It's on the part that you don't actually use when you have an event. So no, and there's an amazing athletic center there too. I mean, one of the nicest in Canada. That's where a lot of national teams in sports in Canada, amateur sports and Olympic sports, do train year round. So no, of course, it would be fun to see this. All right, let's talk about Major League Soccer just for a bit while we wrap up the show. Give our new listeners a taste of what usually Duane and I do on a daily basis. We cover Major League Soccer. Duane covers TFC. I cover the Montreal Impact, and together we cover Major League Soccer and soccer across the board in North America. Last night, there was a few games in Major League Soccer. TFC, don't call it a comeback or call it a comeback from 3-0 down to 3-3 to 4-3 to 4-4. That draw was hard to get.
I don't even know. Like, if you're listening to me for the first time, I normally am a little more insightful, but I don't know how you describe a game in which TFC goes down 3 to the worst team in the league, storms back to tie it, immediately allows again, has half the crowd leaving, and then they score again, and they tie it up on 2 late goals by Nick Hagelin.
He doubled his entire career stats last night. Nick Hagelin had 2 goals in his life in Major League Soccer before last night. And after 90 minutes,
his previous goal was against Montreal in the Eastern Conference Final, right? So it's been a long time since he scored.
He was a sub, right? He was a sub yesterday. Was he starting or was he a sub?
No, he started last night. But
he started. I was gonna say he comes on and he doubles his career tally in like 20 minutes. Okay, it took 90, but he doubled his career tally of goals in Major League Soccer in 90 minutes.
I mean, but it's more draw points for Toronto, and that's right now. I mean, there was a point that
Against DC too, right? You gave DC a point there, and that's where it hurts. Is you don't even eliminate another team from the race. Technically, you're giving DC another point, and now they're gonna have Rooney and a new stadium. They're gonna have some momentum. Nothing's gonna be easy for Toronto from now on.
Well, it's six or bust now, and maybe they can aim a little higher if one of those teams drops back above them. New England would be one I'd be looking at, but if you're TFC right now, I mean, they're not out of it. They're only 4 points out of a playoff spot, and they have an immense amount of talent still, but they're not playing well, and that first half was dreadful in a way that I have not seen TFC play since the battle days. I actually, with a minute to go in stoppage of the first half, I sprinted downstairs from the press box so I could see them walk into the room. I wanted to see their look on their faces. I also wanted to be there in case someone decided to try and kill someone, which has happened a couple times down there.
It happens in the tunnel in Toronto. You never know. I think it has to do with that red light. Maybe change the red light. Red is a bit of a confrontational color. But anyways.
But I stood there and I mean, one of the PR staff was just kind of giving me a bit of a stink eye because I did it. But I mean, I have access to it, so why not? And I just watched them come in, and they did not even weren't making eye contact with each other. They were dead silent. I've never heard a group of athletes walking in a tunnel not saying a word. There was no yelling. There was no screaming. There was just walking like zombies. Like, what the hell just happened down 3-0?
Like a walk of shame?
In the room because they came out flying. But
well, Greg Vanney said after the game that this is the type of response. It's not going to be word for word, but he took a second. He waited. He's like, they needed a clear direction. I gave them a bit of motivation, a bit of reality check. So I think a few garbages can flew around in that room. And I think he did give him a clear direction. Like, guys, it's now or never. We have done this before. And that's what he mentioned to them too. He's like, we have done this before. This is not your big brother's TFC. We're the good TFC. We're not the bad TFC. We have come back from tough games to get results. We can do it again. And they've chipped at it, got 2 quick goals. And that got goals later on in the 82nd minute and eventually tie it and the rest of the game that we know. But yeah, in that locker room at halftime, Greg Vanney gave them an influx of confidence, telling them that, look, we've been there before and we've done this type of comeback and we have achieved a few goal comebacks in our recent history. And as well as a reality check, guys, we have to do it. Otherwise, it's more drop points. It wasn't all the way. It wasn't a victory. But it's one salvage point. Is it enough? Look, we've been giving Montreal flag the entire season. And we're not giving Toronto as flag because we're always like, well, it's because of the Champions League. And then they're going to start slowly. They're going to haven't started yet to get the results that we thought they would. So maybe we should give Toronto more flag. And while Montreal's better positioned than Toronto for a playoff spot now. I'm not saying it's going to continue to be the case. Just saying that's what it is right now.
Well, they're equally placed. I'm trying to understand. I'm not disagreeing with you on Toronto. Montreal and Toronto are both tied with 15 points right now. Montreal's in 0.94 points per game. Montreal's on Toronto's on 1.07. So neither's doing very well. Yeah, look, I said this in the press box in the first half last night, is that Seattle game, I forget which other game it was, the Seattle game, the Chicago game where they blew the late lead, the Seattle game where they ended up losing. Both of those games I looked at and went, you know what, they should win this game. They should have won that game. They dominated in possession. They had, it was the game that they had 22 shots and lost 1-0. I'm trying to remember which game that was. I can't get it in my head right now, but it does, like, they were losing games they should have won, but that has eroded their confidence, and they are tired. But there comes a point where you have to work through that. This break happens now. They have to take full advantage of it. And yes, this is a team. The answer to this question is twofold, Kevin. No, we shouldn't ignore the talent on paper because that talent on paper does suggest to us that if they can turn it around, they are an MLS Cup contender once they get in that playoffs. It doesn't matter where they finish. They could get on a run because Seattle's done it. Portland did it the year before. We've seen teams come from low to win. TFC, as the champions, clearly with a similar lineup, has that type of talent. but we cannot let them off the hook. They should be above the line now, based on based on the games, based on the schedule they've had. They have thrown points away. They are in the position they are about halfway through this season, below the red line, way to hell below any chance of getting home field in that first round. They are 11 points back in New York for a home playoff game. That doesn't seem likely. So really at this point in time, it's get into that playoffs, get that first win, and then the reset button is pressed and it's game on to defend. But that's a long haul right now, and it really comes down to just getting healthy and turning around. I will say this, there's a couple positives from last night. They did show the fight to come back, sure. Javinko looked like he was motivated in the second half. He had the bit in his teeth. He wasn't flopping and moaning and whining like he had been the last few games. He was knocked around a lot and did not go down. Obviously, he goes down a little bit because he's a little guy, but he wasn't really flopping on first contact like I've seen him do in the past last night. Hagelin's goals are nice, but that's, they're one of those like blue moon kind of things, so whatever. The other great thing for last night was when Justin Morrow came in the game, things started to really change. Justin Morrow has been missing. We talk about a lot of the other injuries. Drew Moore is obviously a huge miss. Josie Altidore, it goes without saying. But Justin Morrow is a guy that we didn't talk enough about, and he's been gone for a while. When he came back in the lineup, when he came back on the field last night, TFC started to look like TFC again. So another 2 weeks, he's perfectly healthy. All these people that are strained to the edge, they can stay healthy. And if they get the big man back up front, it's going to be an interesting second half of the season, but they've handicapped themselves for sure.
All right, let's move to Montreal quickly, then we'll wrap the show. All coming up in an hour on World Cup today already. So Duane, Montreal last night, it was great. Montreal scored a goal just a few minutes in, penalty. Safir Taider was tackled in the box. Ref called it. Yeah, Piatti puts it away. 1-0 and finished 3-0. Nothing quite special in this game. And we're talking to all the players in the locker room. Things are fine. And then it's been like 15, 20 minutes. Not a lot of players are left. And then we're told Nacho Piatti's coming. All right. Nice. We haven't talked to Nacho in forever. He hasn't talked to us in forever. He was maybe feeling not that great about the comments of, so Nacho wants to talk? Okay. That might be interesting. First few questions, normal answer. Let me translate here. First answer is like, so how you've been? We haven't seen you in a few weeks. How you've been? I'm great. I'm always great. Sometimes the team's not great, but I'm great. So I'm like, okay, that's all right. And then comes a question. This was asked by Joey Alfieri of TSN 69 radio channel in Montreal. So Nacho, president of the team, Joey Saputo, owner as well, mentioned a few weeks ago that there's no untouchables with the Montreal Impact. What is your comment about it? And he mentioned you too in that conversation. What do you have to say? Nacho, without missing the beat. Yeah, no, there's no untouchable. That's fine. He's a president and he can have his opinion. That's all well and good. I'm here for Montreal. I want to play for Montreal. I do my best on the pitch for Montreal. Now, if he thinks I'm the problem, I can play somewhere else. Thank you, Nacho. And we left, and so that's how my night ended at the Saputo Stadium last night. Like, okay, and we're like just a few of us left for that scrum, and so now you run after the other guy that you like. You're like, hey man, you need to hear this. Yeah. So now people are not even talking about the 3-0 win. People are talking about Nacho saying, if you think I'm the problem, I can go play somewhere else.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he can. I mean, is that him asking to be traded, or is that him saying, put up or shut up, Joey? I mean, look, Joey Saputo would be both, in good times would be a great owner to play under. In bad times, I think he'd be a very frustrating owner to play under because he wears his heart in his sleeve, right? And people love that about him, but people get frustrated by it. I don't know what the answer with Piatti is. If they can get significant resources for him that helps them really mold that team moving forward, then great. But if they don't have a plan, then you might as well keep him, and you might as well try and keep him happy for as long as you can, because he is a player that the fans relate to and is exciting to watch and is a reason to go watch that team.
But I was going to say my caveat to this is, well, Piatti, before coming here, he had a value but was not a well-known name. It was a bit of a lucky strike from Montreal to land him. It's not like they knew exactly what they got. They knew he was going to be good, but they didn't know he was going to be that good. So once you have him, and now you have him, there's nowhere in the world right now where Nacho Piatti has more value than Major League Soccer. What's coming up on July 10? There's a very high probability that Atlanta sells Miguel Almiron before his value continues to drop and get most out of him. So sell one Argentinian, and then there's going to be some outcry because it'll be the first big name Atlanta sells in their history. So some part of the 40,000 kind of season ticket holders are not going to be happy. So what do? You replace one Argentinian with another one that's known in the league that you can get for maybe a few million and not necessarily eat all of that profit that you just made selling Miguel Almiron. So maybe you replace Miggy with Nacho.
Yeah, something like that. You're right. You're going to get the most out of him selling him in league, whether you want to sell him to an Eastern Conference rival or whether you even consider Atlanta a rival at this point, since Montreal has never really played in a league when Atlanta's been good and vice versa. So it's hard to really get too worked up about them. The other side of this would be to look at the West and look at the top teams in the West. I can't see Vancouver paying for him.
Kansas City. Do you want maybe one guy that could complete your team? Nacho's the guy, Not if imagine if Nacho's just part of the team. That team's good. That team's good. Very, very good.
Yeah, well, but I would look at Dallas and LAFC, and without doing the numbers, crunching them, and I'm not even sure what their DP situation is on either, to be honest with you right now. I think LAFC has one left. So that's a possibility, and they would have quite a bit of allocation, you would imagine, because they get a little bit extra as an expansion team. Dallas is a team that doesn't really like to spend a lot of money on that end, but for a half season, a rental, that might be something that they would be willing to do too. But Montreal would be dumb to let go of him for anything less than the highest internal transfer in MLS history. Like, this would be the biggest move. It would have to be, otherwise Montreal might as well just hold on to him. And I think he's more valuable to Montreal playing out the season and walking for free than he would be for a less than value transfer in the league, in my opinion.
At least 2.5 million of allocation would be the minimum, or an equivalent value of players or whatever would be the value of a Nacho Piatti right now with the contracts he has and the contract, what's left on the contract. We've seen Dom Dwyer, 1.7 was for Dom Dwyer?
Something like that,
off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So if 1.7 for Dom Dwyer, you need 2, but maybe even closer to 2.5 for Nacho Piatti.
Well, the point I was making a minute ago is, let's just say for the sake of argument that Real Salt Lake says is your best offer, but they're offering like $500,000 in allocation. To me, I would rather eat $500,000, because you're not going to replace him with $500,000. You're just not. I mean, you could do some creative stuff with Tam and Game anyway. That's not really going to be a big jump for you. Rather than have him in the league for 3 more years doing things that your fans are pointing to while you're trying to rebuild and going, well, if we had him, I think that the value, you might, that kind of like optics would be worth eating a below value transfer. That was my point.
Yep, I agree. All right, we hope you enjoyed day 1 of our World Cup Today coverage. We have been doing this for 2 weeks already. Well, we have been doing this for 5 years already, so if you're just discovering us, thank you for the discovery. And you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, on our YouTube page, youtube.com/sportspodcast, and network available as a podcast just a few minutes after the live show finishes. Ad-free versions of the podcast are available at patreon.com/sportspodcast and network. This is the place where you can support us financially as well. And there's another way you can support us non-financially. If you like the show, share the show. Retweet on Twitter. Share on Facebook. Repost on Instagram. Share on LinkedIn. Heck, if you're on MySpace, we're probably there too. So you can do that as well. Kids, MySpace was one of the first social media, if you're wondering what MySpace was. But anyways, until tomorrow, as always, follow us everywhere and have a great soccer.